Hey, hey, how's it going, everybody? Dave Shrine here, founder of Campaign Donut. That's right, Campaign Donut, a brand new online business that I'm starting. I'm very excited to share with you guys about it, but that's not why I'm here to talk. I'm just kind of getting used to saying that, founder of Campaign Donut. So I'll share more and more about that. Hey, before I get into the question that I want to talk about today, question about, hey, how do I know, if my business is a good idea? How do I know that I should go in for myself, not partner up with someone else? Before I get into that, I want to make sure that I tell you I've got a brand new free training event coming up, and it's all about creating an online course. It's all about how do I create an online course to market and sell online, earn all that passive income that I see other people making. So be sure to click the link below. It's absolutely free, and it's probably one of the best trainings that I do because it's so simple, easy. Like, it's so easy, and at the very end, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how easy it was for me to create an online course. It is really that easy. So let's talk about this. I had a question come in yesterday, and I actually want to read it here. Let me bring it up on my computer screen. It says, hey man, how did you know going into business for yourself was the right car? Why not try and join up with someone that has a product or a service that you agree with and work with them? Is what you're doing something that you're really passionate about? And then he just went into saying, I've got different passions, but I'm not really sure which one to do, and I'm not really sure if I should partner up with somebody else. And I thought this was a really great question, and I sent some thoughts back to him that I'm going to share here right now. But first and foremost, the idea of how did I know going into business for myself was the right car? And really, it came down to this. In 2014, so I had worked in the nonprofit world, Christian ministry, full time for about 8 years, and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot of stuff. I actually learned a lot that set me up for launching Shrine Media and now sets me up for doing Campaign Donut. So it was a really, really beneficial time. However, in 2014, with no warning whatsoever, with no inkling that I was going to be let go, I got fired. And it was a really, really difficult season for me. It was really tough. There were a lot of tears. Most of you know that I'm diagnosed with depression. And so it was even a little bit more compounded, like, hey, like, how is this going to affect me knowing that my chemicals are not balanced correctly? And so it was a really, really difficult season to be in. And one of the things that came out of that was with not having any warning, with basically being fired, with the whims of the person that was in charge, the person who was my boss, just kind of up to how he felt at the time. I was like, you know what? I'm never going to let one person control 100% of my income. Now, I'm saying this is for me. Now, it's not right for everybody. But for me, I was just like, you know what? Like, I am not going to let one person control my financial security. Now, there's a lot of things that go into that, and saving and planning and things like that. But as far as the bulk of where our income came from, I didn't like having everything tied to how a particular person felt about me, to how a particular person saw me. And it was just a very, very clarifying moment that, you know what, if I can do this and create for myself, I'm going to do this and I'm going to create for myself. And that's really what I went after there. So I knew that it was the right thing for me because I got to the point where I realized I want to be in control of my own financial future, and I work really well with people. I do not work well for people. And that was a really big differentiator as well. A lot of times, especially with millennials now, like, millennials want to know the bigger purpose, the bigger picture, how what they're doing right here fits in with what's going on over here. Now, they may not want necessarily to have responsibility over here, but they want to know how what they're doing impacts everything else. And that's really how I was. So the idea of me coming into a position where it says, hey, you focus just on this, don't look at anything else, that was really difficult for me because I felt like, no, I want to work with people, but if I'm being told to just work on one particular thing, that was going to be very hard for my personality, for the way that I operate, the way that I work. And so I said, you know what? I know that I work really well with people. So if I can create a business where I get to work with people every single day and I get to create a culture where we all work together, that's going to wind up being more beneficial for me in the future. So that's what I did. I started Shrine Media, and Shrine Media is all about working with, advocating for, and creating a digital marketing strategy that is all about using content to acquire, and acquire leads and engage customers for businesses who have something to sell online. That's what Shrine Media is all about. So for me, it was clear because number one, I didn't want any one person controlling my income. And number two, I worked well with people, but I didn't work well for people. So that's kind of how I knew that I wanted to do my own business. As far as could my business be viable, it had already been viable in that I had been freelancing for several years. So I didn't just go from doing nothing all the way ramping up to running a six-figure business, a five-figure or six-figure business. Man, it's hot in here. Got to get the fan. I turned the fan off of not to oscillate because I didn't want it blowing over here, but it's too hot to not be using the fan. Hopefully can you hear that in the microphone? Whoever's watching, can you tell me, do you hear that blowing into the microphone? I may need Carlos and Jordan are gone. So I'm here by myself, just talking to you guys. Let me know if you can hear the fan blowing into the microphone. It's just too hot for me to not have it on. So those were the two things that that really made it clear to me that I needed to launch my own business. And launching my own business was really just ramping up the freelancing work that I had been doing for years prior to that. I had been building websites years prior to that. I had been doing logo design years prior to that. I had been running social media prior to that. I had been writing prior to that. I'd been doing a lot of things on my own before actually deciding to launch my own business. And so that was my training ground. And as a matter of fact, where I really, truly got my first start was back in 2009. So just down the street here, thanks, Garrett, I appreciate that. Just down the street here, there's a restaurant called Sidewinder Subs. And the guy who owns it, his name's Doug, and he's been one of my buddies for a long time. I worked at FedEx before I did full-time ministry, and before I launched Shrine Media, I worked at FedEx, and Doug and I had our routes right next to each other. We became really good buddies. He was the only FedEx driver I invited to my wedding in 2006, and he opened up a sandwich shop just like, I don't know, a mile away from my first house. And so when Doug was first opening, he was selling like $50 a day. He had all this free time. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to go down. Sandra and I, we didn't have kids. So I was like, hey, I'm going to go hang out with Doug tonight. So I went down to his sandwich shop and I was like, hey, man, if you're cool with it, I'd love to be able to build a website for you. I'd love to kind of start building an email list. I'm learning some stuff online and I'd love to try it with your shop. And I said, just pay me in food and we'll call it even. And he was like, okay, cool. And so that's where I got my start. I started running the website for him, his email marketing, his social media marketing, his ad marketing, all of his reputation management. I wound up doing all of it for him. And that's really where I learned a lot of the strategies that I then implemented into all sorts of different areas, not only in Shrine Media, but for friends, for family, and now in Campaign Donut and several other businesses that I'm a part of. So it wasn't like I went from 100 miles an hour in nonprofit to 0 miles an hour to 100 miles an hour in my own thing. It was really just a carryover from what I had already been doing in my freelancing business. So the other half of his question, so that was the first half, like how did you know that doing your own business was the right car for you to ride in? The other half of his question was, why not just partner up with somebody who has something that you believe in? And I can't say that there's a right answer for everybody or a wrong answer for everybody. All I can say is this is the answer for me. And for me, the reason why I didn't really want to partner up with anyone was because I've heard too many stories of somebody like myself being super passionate, being kind of pushed into something, right? Like I hadn't planned on quitting my job that July of 2014. So I was kind of pushed into starting something. And if I hitched my wagon to someone else, then my fate was going to be tied to them. And so it was kind of getting back to one of the reasons why I wanted to launch my own business in the first place was that I didn't want my financial future and my financial security attached to somebody else. Now, I know lots of people who that's worked out for. They've started a business, they've had co-founders, and it's worked really well. But I also know a lot of people who have said it worked horribly. As a matter of fact, I had one friend tell me, I just had to completely start a brand new business and get out of this old one because the other person was dead weight, wouldn't do their end of the bargain, and I was doing all the work, yet we were splitting all the profits. And so that was probably the main reason why I didn't want to partner up with someone. Another reason why I didn't want to partner up with someone, maybe be a reseller or an affiliate marketer or things like that, which again, this is for me. I'm not saying that's for you. But another reason why I didn't want to do that was because I wanted to keep 100% of what I made. And I wanted to make the decision about who and what I spent that money on after it came my way. And so if I had been pulling in partnerships and selling other people's products, well, I got to keep a percentage of that, which is fine. Maybe you can make enough volume in that to be able to justify it. But for me, I wanted everything. And it's not I wanted all this money sort of thing. It was more along the lines of, no, I want to receive 100% of the proceeds that I generate. And I want to spend it how best I see fit. Now, here's a little bit about me, and I'm still kind of working through it, is I have a real problem kind of with, I wouldn't say authority, although that's true. Part of my makeup is a lot of times, here's a good way to explain it. Because social media was so new, because digital marketing was so new, because online business was so new, I was often the smartest person in the room when it came to these things because everybody around me had no idea what it was and no idea how to do it and no idea how to make it effective. And so I was left without anybody really being able to hold me accountable. Though they would try, it was kind of one of those deals like, hey, you just have to trust me on this because like this is brand new. You've never done it before. You're not educating yourself on it, but I am educating myself on it and I'm applying it every day. And so whenever I would get pushback from, one of my superiors when I was kind of coming up in, career-wise, it was really difficult for me to accept that because I felt like, well, I am the person most qualified to make this particular decision. And so there's some unhealthiness in there that I'm still trying to work through and trying to figure out how do I trust people, how do I determine who's trustworthy and then go on and full on trust them. And I think once I do determine someone's trustworthy, it's a lot easier for me to actually trust them. But in the beginning, it was very difficult because I would have people saying, you can't do this or you can't do that. When I would say, there's no other way to do it than this way right here. And so, yes, there's some things that I need to work out there. But with that being my history, it lent itself to me saying, you know what? I really don't want somebody else looking over my shoulder, questioning what it is that I'm doing because my instincts are good. As a matter of fact, on Twitter yesterday, I saw someone write something along the lines of, I wish I had it in front of me. She said something about like going with your instinct, going with your gut, because it's usually right. And you know what? If you have a trained instinct and if you have a trained gut, yeah, it's almost always right. And so I've just got really good instincts, but I am developing skills to listen and receive feedback. And as a matter of fact, like I'm always talking to Jordan and Carlos saying, hey, I want your opinions. I want to know what you think of these things because I'm at this point now where I'm realizing I'm not the smartest guy in the room. And I'm not the one with the most authority on every single subject that we do. And that's a really, really good thing. So that was kind of the reason why I decided to do my own thing is I didn't want to share with anybody else, not in a selfish way, but in a way of, no, like I want to guide this thing. If this thing's going to fly, it's going to be because of my leadership. And if it's going to fall, it's going to be because of my leadership too. And fortunately, I've had really great people surrounding me all along the way to ensure that, hey, when it looks like we're about to fall, we can recover and we can start to fly again. So that's the answer to the question that I had come in. And hopefully that encourages you, gives you a little bit of food for thought as you are in your current journey where you're at. Garrett, I appreciate that, man. So many pearls of wisdom, Garrett says over on Facebook. I appreciate that, man. So here's the deal, though. If you are going to go off and do your own thing, the other part of his question was, do I need to have a passion for what I do? And you know what? There's two different schools of thought that I've heard. I've heard the one school of thought that says, yeah, absolutely. You have to have passion for what you're going to do or else you're going to burn out. For me, that's definitely true. I'm a man of passion, right? No, like everything that I do has enthusiasm and passion and excitement behind it. That's just the way that I'm wired, which is why it's so amazing that I'm actually diagnosed with depression. So it just goes to show, you don't always know somebody. You think you may, and you don't always know yourself. You think you might know yourself, but you don't. And so for me, it was one of those deals where when I was diagnosed with depression, it was like, I'm always happy. How can I be diagnosed? How can I have depression? So I've got that enthusiasm. And if the enthusiasm isn't there, then it's going to be really difficult for me to be on board and keep pushing something forward, keep moving it into the future. But then there's the other side. And this one comes from the guy who does the Dirty Jobs show. Carlos, what's the name of the guy who does Dirty Jobs? Do you know that? I Can't think. Look it up real quick. Dirty Jobs host. There's this guy who hosts Dirty Jobs. It's on like the Discovery Channel, I think. What's his name?
Mike Rowe.
Mike Rowe.
Rowe. R-O-W-E.
R-O-W-E. Rowe. That sounds right. Mike Rowe. Let's go with that. I'm actually pretty sure it is. So Mike Rowe says, you really don't need a passion for whatever it is you want to do to find success. All you need is to find where the opportunity lies. And so his whole deal is nobody wants to work in sewage. Nobody wants to work in garbage. Nobody wants to work in all of these industries that are really dirty work. Nobody wants to work, in gas and oil and things like that because there's just a lot of undesirability there. But he's saying that, look, there's an opportunity right there. So if you want to do something for yourself, if you want to, kind of put your tent pole into the ground, put your flag into the ground and say, this is my area, I'm going to make this a success. He's from the side that you really don't need a passion in it. You just need to find the right opportunity and go. And I can kind of see that because I could see somebody like myself finding joy in the people rather than the projects itself. Now, if you're going to start something, that's going to be really tough if you're a passion-driven person, an enthusiasm-driven person. If you're an analytical thinker and you kind of just look at opportunity and you can attack the problem no matter what it is and really invest yourself, even if it's not something that you're naturally interested in, then you might want the Mike Rowe way of thinking, where it's like, look for the opportunity and take advantage of the opportunity. For me, it was a combination of opportunity plus passion. And if I didn't have passion for what it was I was doing, I probably wouldn't have launched into it. But as it was, like, I had the passion and I thought to myself, you know what? I can do this. I can make it happen. And I think that's a big differentiator for me. Not everybody's wired like I am, and that's fine. But for me, I really don't think of failure as an option. I just think of it's going to come together. I heard it put this way. A lot of times it's hard for us to get through certain... hey, Yolanda, how's it going? Eric, I saw you chime in too. Good to see you guys. A lot of times it's hard for us in the middle of conflict, in the middle of frustration, especially with another person. It's really hard for us to get through that. And part of it is because we're so close to the situation that our vision is just blocked and hindered. We can't see past the conflict into the resolution. And that's why it's really helpful to have a third party. Well, one of the things that I have really developed a skill for, and I would challenge anybody to do this. It's not something that just comes naturally, but it's something that, is kind of developed over time. And now it's a natural reaction for me. But it's this ability to look at the conflict or the situation in front or the challenge in front and to say, I will get past this. There will come a time, there will come a day, there will be a moment where I will be like past this conflict, where this conflict will be in the rear view mirror. What will it look like? What will it feel like? How will I look back on this conflict and wish I would have responded or would desire to have been, to carry myself through it? And then I approach the conflict with that attitude. So if I've got something going on, whether it's with my spouse, with Sandra, or whether it's with someone from the team, whether it's with a client, and it's just we're not lining up, right? Because we're humans. We don't always line up. God made us unique. So we're not lining up because of our uniqueness and just the different ways that we see the world. I'll stop and I'll think, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with this person. This conversation is going to come and it's going to go. And I'll be on the other side of that conversation here in the next couple days. What do I see for myself on the other side there? Do I see myself still at odds with the person? Do I see myself calm? Do I see myself still upset? How do I see myself? And then I kind of take that and I say, okay, here's how I really want it to be. Here's how I want to shape it. And then I reverse engineer and I go backwards and I say, okay, how do I make that happen in this conversation that I'm about to have? And so that, again, that's this idea of, for me, it's never been about will I succeed or won't. It's here's how I'm going to make it happen, and I'm going to see myself on the other end of it, and then I'm going to reverse engineer, and I'm going to make it happen. So when I launched my own business, it wasn't a matter of is this going to work? It's a matter of how am I going to make this work? Not everybody has that same perspective, and that's okay. That's good. John Acuff has a really funny saying that in a relationship, he's talking about marriage, but in a relationship, there's usually a person that is the wow and a person that is the how. Me, in my marriage, I am the wow. I'm always coming up with ideas. I'm always coming up with ways to do something, to make something happen, how to accomplish something, to launch something new, to create. My wife, she's the how. Okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to make this happen? And so we've learned to live with that dynamic there. So hopefully this was a helpful broadcast for you. I really appreciate you hanging out a few minutes. I want to tell people who are watching on my David M. Shrine side that very soon I'm going to stop broadcasting regularly on the David M. Shrine. So be sure and go to my Dave Shrine. So not David M. Shrine, but my Dave Shrine official page. And that's where I'll be broadcasting for the foreseeable future. So the other thing is I want to call your attention to a free training that I'm doing. It's in the on Facebook and YouTube. It's in the description, and it has a link to the registration page. Basically, it's exactly how you can create an online course. I want to see people who have got this online course in their brain actually bring it to life and see that online course come into the world and then be able to market and sell it. So no sales. I may throw out, hey, if you need help, here's what it would cost you. But no sales, no bait and switch, anything like that. It really honestly is me wanting to empower you to create more content that converts for your business. And a lot of times, online courses are a great way to generate leads and revenue. So thank you so much for taking a few minutes to hang out. Really appreciate it. Make sure to like, make sure to follow, make sure to subscribe, and go get registered for the webinar coming up, for this workshop coming up next Tuesday. It's going to be fantastic, and share it out with anyone and everyone who you think it would be a good fit for. That's really honestly the best way you can show appreciation, gratitude, and pay it forward, is sharing it out. So I appreciate it, guys. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comment section and I'll check them out a little bit later on today. Peace out, everybody.